So I'm the co-founder and CEO of a marketing analytics company. We help B2B companies prove how they contribute to revenue. And that's an easy statement for you to hear now that was surprisingly difficult for us to get to. Because distilling your message into something that everybody understands can be incredibly complicated. So as you leave, you'll probably have a vague notion of what we do. And one of the hardest parts of building your own company is actually learning how to communicate in a really distilled, easy to understand way. It's not just making sure people hear the words that you're saying, but they understand them and the intent behind them. So this comes into everything from your elevator pitch to how you fire, how you hire, how your product UI looks and talks, and how you do your marketing. So there's a few categories of words I'd like to talk about. The first are the words that you don't know. So when you start a company, you're becoming a brand new person every day. You're learning how to be a bookkeeper. You're learning how to be a designer. You're learning how to be a developer. And as you do this, you're developing whole new pieces of vocabulary. And you have to learn the difference between all these words. Because if you're talking to your investors about the difference between bookings and revenue, that becomes hugely important. So you have to ask for help in how to speak the right language and know the context of where you're going to be. The next is knowing the words that you shouldn't be using. Make sure that you're not using buzzwords. Make sure that you're saying please and thank you to your team. And make sure that you're giving credit publicly to the successes of your team. And own up to the failures yourself. I lost my scroll position in my notes, I'm sorry. Be honest with your team. Be frank. Odds are they can handle it if you give them a high level of transparency. And as mentioned, don't use Canadian words. When you go to do a pitch, talk more brash. Don't say, I think we're going to make this target. I hope we close this deal. Be more aggressive and believe in your business. It's going to come across. You also need to learn how people talk. So as we go into an industry and we're learning all of the words of that category, we have to understand the difference between how you perceive the language and how the audience perceives the language. This is a lesson I actually took a long time to learn because I can speak to VPs of marketing very, very well. They understand what we're selling. When I go to speak to investors, I'm trying to speak to them in the same language. I start diving into CRMs and they don't know what I'm talking about. So you really have to change your message for your audience. Learning this really matters, especially as you bring your team involved. As you're coaching your development team, you might talk to them a little bit differently than you talk to your design or your marketing team. These are really important distinctions. So how do you get better at your words? You start by being really awkward. You leave lots of spaces in conversation for people to fill to tell you how they feel. My director of customer experience actually uses this in sales to figure out what the next step of a deal process is. You just stop talking and you stop talking and you wait. You also have to do things that feel really hard. So for example, if you have to fire someone, make sure that you're the person that does it. If you have to do a big presentation or deliver critical feedback, you're going to feel like you're really embarrassing yourself. You're going to feel like you're red in the face, but probably to the outside, nobody sees that. So you just have to get through it and know it's not as scary on the other side. And you have to allow yourself time to edit and make mistakes. So as you go through and you message with your staff, you message with your investors, you put messaging in your product, you're going to screw it up. Who cares? Throw it out, fix it. Don't feel like everything is permanent. You can always say, sorry, we're Canadian. You also have to understand that people have a small capacity for words. They will stop listening. They will stop reading your emails. So shorten everything that you think is important. Get it to the distilled point. April Dunford has an awesome blog post about this. She calls it different, better. Talk about only the things that are different and only the things that are better. And ask for help. This is the biggest way that you're going to learn what the right words are for your industry, what your right messaging is for your marketing. Ask your customers, they will tell you. And Asking for help is very different from asking for advice. If you ask for advice, everyone's going to tell you what they think without context. Asking for help means being a little bit more vulnerable and going out there and saying, I have this specific thing and I don't know what to do next. Can you help me? So I've talked a lot. It's a lot of words. And so the most important lesson of this is one I'm stealing from Slack in a blog post they have called Words Are Hard. Know when to stop. Thank you. Any questions?
What was your target audience that you found hardest to get the right words for?
Investors.
Repeat the question.
Sorry?
So repeat the question.
The question was, what was the hardest audience to get the right words for? And for me, it was definitely learning how to speak the language of VCs.
Do you think there's communication challenges that are unique to tech people?
No, I think there's communication challenges that are unique to people. Everyone has them. They're very different. You're going to have them in your personal life. You're going to have them in your work life. It's really the core skill is understanding how that other person communicates, learning how to listen to them and ask questions, and then translating it back into something that works for both of you.
Any more?